Hello and welcome to the Xenogenesis podcast. My name is Richard Acton, and in this episode 33, we are covering Book 2, Adulthood-Rites, and Part 2, Phoenix, and of that, Chapter 6. It's a reasonably long chapter, but we're just going to do the one, and I'm joined as always by my co-host.
Michael Glinka. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so this time we have a nice longer chapter to discuss the events. We actually finally get to know the name of the ginger man.
Yes, so the whole group of men, including the one who died, right?
Yeah,
we get all their names.
Yeah, but like, I'm just glad that I don't have to call him the ginger man anymore.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a mouthful.
All the love to the ginger people out there, but but honestly, you killed me with Shrek last time. Honestly.
I'd forgotten about it.
Yeah, I haven't. Each time I saw his name, I always thought of Shrek.
Okay then. Well, let's talk about your predictions for this chapter. Then.
So I said the last episode that my chapter 6 prediction would be the same as chapter 5, which was Akin and men reach their destination, the village Phoenix, full of guns and full of people thinking they can take on the Oankali. That was my prediction.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Well, nope. Yeah, we go to, I think, a village, but not Phoenix, right?
That is correct.
So,
that is correct.
Yes.
So let's get started, I guess.
Let's launch into the summary.
So chapter 6 starts with the Akin's journey, Akin's and the men's journey continuing. The men were swimming up the river for many, many days. And as I mentioned earlier, we've learned the name of the ginger man. His name was Galt. And after Akin's slip up, when Akin talked to him about the dying man, Galt kept away as much as he could, trying to speak as little as possible to the boy. The other men, on the other hand, were treating Akin like a bag, but lifting him, tossing him, blah blah blah, But finally, after
this is we've kind of talked about this before, but this is a very effective mechanism at kind of subtly communicating that these guys don't know what the hell they're doing when it comes to handling the child. It's quite aggravating, right? It's just the constantly having him be described as being picked up by a limb, and it's just
the thing is, right?
It's very aggravating.
The thing is, in the book, finally, after a few days, Akin realizes that in their minds it was not a cruel treatment, right? No one hit Akin anymore. No one tried to poison him. Although there was few fights between the men themselves and the usual cursing at each other, nothing else happened to Akin. So I feel like that level of accepting what is acceptable behavior has dropped significantly in Akin's eye.
Yeah. I think it's he's recognized that it's not kind of active ill intent when it comes to the handling him. It's just that they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, but that's not a standard. Let's be honest. This is not the standard of child treatment that should be out there, Akin. Come on.
No. Well, I suppose it's interesting to. I wonder if there's some kind of some commentary there on some aspects of this, because it's. There have been no very young children around.
That's correct.
For the last few decades, effectively, right? Because that's how long they've been out of stasis.
Well,
actually,
we've learned that the man who died, was awake for 65 years, right? So technically, for each person, we can't assume it's the same time. It might be differing.
True, and I suppose there's the. It's been
200
something on the order of 3 decades or so since kind of the humans started to be seriously reintroduced to Earth. Right?
Yes, that's correct.
The first group.
That's correct.
So they may have spent some time awake on the ship before that, but in terms of the amount of time that human sort of semi-self-sufficient human independent groups back on the surface of the planet, it's only been about 30 years or so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. Yes. Sorry, I mentioned earlier that it's been like 200 something years, 250, 270 years since the actual nuclear war that took place. But yeah, it's for some of them probably they haven't even seen a child in a long time. So.
So presumably, there'll have been no new kids born in that time, and there may have been some young kids woken up. But so like the exposure to children will have been lower. In that time.
That's true, but one of them...
doesn't seem like it should be sufficient.
Yeah, honestly.
For them to be this bad.
Honestly, but the thing is, one of them later on talks about that he had 7 kids, right? And so there should be some memory of how to take care of a kid. Like even you realize that, they're not like duffel bags to just be thrown around. Like it's...
Yeah.
Come on.
So the fact that some of these guys had kids before makes it even more irritating. Yeah.
But yeah. Akin also realized that in the as he was spending more time with the men, that the men do not follow the civilized hygiene routine. They basically stank. Like they didn't wash themselves or anything. So, I just cannot imagine like this environment for a kid, especially for a kid. Luckily for them, Akin was...
And one with enhanced sensory capabilities as
exactly.
Well.
So it must be but even twice as worse or more than that. And considering the fact that they're lucky that Akin is aware of his surroundings and he can for example probably defecate himself somewhere in some bush or whatever, because if it was an actual 1-year-old kid that basically poops and pees themselves all the time, I don't think those men the kid wouldn't survive long enough if they haven't kept its hygiene long enough. So
well, I wonder if that's kind of a component of why they're treating him the way that they are, and that he's sufficiently other in just his advanced capacities, just to take care of himself and whatnot. That they're kind of testing the boundaries of his robustness just because he's different.
Maybe, but still, it's not a way to treat a child. Doesn't matter how much different you are. But yeah, but. I guess we all, as you mentioned earlier, we also are told that the men from Akin observation, they often talked about the dead man, and you mentioned earlier his name Tilden, as well as other men that traveled with them, but all dead. So I guess the group that's traveling now is just diminishingly getting smaller and smaller. Basically, it's diminishing all the time with the age and lack of basically any offsprings, because you have your offsprings, you have to deal with the Oankali.
Yep, we've just got this kind of small, diminishing roving band of, kidnappers, I suppose.
But there's no other way to they are either traders if they have goods, or they're kidnappers if they have nothing. So when the current in the river grew too strong, the group hit the boat and began the journey on foot, and they were going uphill because although there was still a rainforest around them, they started getting more and more scarce, and the land was slowly turning into hills. So the men hoped that the village that was nearby would trade Akin a rich resistive village called Hillmann, where people spoke German and Spanish. Tilden, the dead man, was the group's German speaker. In the group, though, there was another man called Damek, the man who hit Tino, but he only spoke a bit of basic German, only a few words. The other 2 men, Iriarte and Kalik, could speak Spanish. Iriarte lived in Chile, while Kalik spent years in Argentina. The men decided to do the training in Spanish while listening to German for hope that maybe the villagers will say something between themselves, like a slip up or something.
It's interesting that they've got a little bit of advanced planning here on what they're going to do for the trading, right? They're planning to pretend not to speak any German, and only speak Spanish. So they're not they certainly seem to have more of a plan here going into the trade than they did when they
with the kid.
Attacked Tina.
I guess 4 brains together will come up with of their level will come up with a plan after some time.
Yeah, as I think they're an interesting mess of contradictions. This bunch.
Yeah, honestly,
because
I
they seem to care about one another. Like when Tilden died, one of them was crying.
but then they beat each other up, and then they cursed at each other, and then I don't know. It's just
yeah, odd bunch.
A really odd bunch. So we're told that Akin learned some Spanish from Tino. But never had a chance to hear German. And as the group approached Hillmann through the village of Hillmann, through fields of bananas, papaya trees, pineapple plants, and corn, and very well-kept gardens is noticed by Akin, the boy realized that something was amiss. The village was 2 neat rows of thatched roof wooden houses on stilts, but there were no people around. Akin could not see or hear anyone, and considering the fact, that even if humans were, if they tried to be quiet, Akin, inheriting the super sensitive senses from the Oankali, would be able to pick them up nonetheless. But it was completely empty in here.
Yeah. So this sort of ominous ghost town sort of aesthetic. Yeah.
So the first one to realize something was amiss was Riarte, because he looked at Akin and then saw in Akin's face that something was wrong. And when he was like, "What's wrong?" When the man asked Akin, was like, "What's wrong?" And Akin was like, almost made the same mistake as he did with Galt, but didn't say anything likely. The other man didn't notice yet, with Kalik saying that everything is fine, but Riarte immediately told him that about the lack of people. He's sure because Akin noticed it, and that's when Galt also chipped in saying yes, he agrees because he was watching Akin all this time. There's this little excerpt from a book I copied. He gave Akin a look of suspicion. What you walk into with us, kid. For God's sake, Damek said. He's a baby. He doesn't know anything. Let's go. So far, the only person who really realizes that Akin is fully aware of what's going on is Galt, because Akin spoke to him, but the rest of them are still treating Akin as a little baby, basically.
Yeah, they haven't quite cottoned on to quite how smart he is.
So the men started walking towards the village whilst Akin was absorbing the smells of the place, getting more information out of it. The people were gone for several days. The food was rotting, and some agoutis, small rodents, were running around and eating them. He could also smell the Oankali, but it was not the group to save him. The men stopped in the middle of the village, abandoned village, and let Akin loose to observe where he could go. Akin turned slowly, drawing breaths over his tongue, something unusual but not likely to stimulate fear or anger. Blood in one direction, old human blood, dry on dead wood. No, it would be no good to show them that. So I need to say, they put Akin down, like a hunting dog or something, and then just okay, Akin, go, find something. It's just like,
okay, yep. They seem to have a very sort of mixed understanding of what his capabilities might be, because they're very unclear on it, aren't they? Galt has some better picture of it, but the others kind of
it's
still seem to have some respect for his sensory capabilities, but don't really.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like at this point, considering that's been several decades of humans interacting with Oankali, I feel like there's a superstition developed about Oankali, not without basis, right? Because we know that we were told earlier that Nikanj can hear your heartbeat or inner thoughts, inner thinking, if you even across this room, right? So it's okay, sort of maybe the kids also have this sort of ability, but I feel like there's a superstition also growing that everything that comes out from the Oankali is supercharged or super strong, super fast, super senses, basically Superman.
Yeah. I can certainly see that. Yeah, this kind of set of superstitions around them.
It depends. If the Oankali develop the kids, the construct kids, to have all those abilities, but I feel like maybe not all of them do that, right? Maybe some of them make the kids a bit less. I'm sure they give them means to survive, have a higher chance of survival, but
Yeah, I mean, I think I got the impression that Akin's unusually intelligent even by the standards of the construct kids, right? So I think that it may make sense that some of them have sort of less sophisticated communication capabilities at the same age. Not to mention that they may well choose not to use them when kidnapped. Plus, presumably it's a relatively rare thing that they've got the construct kids interacting with the humans anyway, because it never ends well. So most people who aren't sort of as down on their luck as this bunch are not resorting to trying to
True.
Kidnap the construct children. So yeah, it's a good environment for developing some superstitions, actually. Yeah.
So yeah, it just felt to me that like it's a weird attitude that towards having, but who knows? These men have their brain wired in a really different way to what a normal human being would maybe have. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I suspect it's probably slightly more normal way of wiring than we might like to think. When subject to these kind of circumstances, at least.
True. But yeah, so on one way, Akin sensed blood, and he was like, "Nope, I'm not gonna show them that." On the other side, he sends an agouti, sort of like a big rat, I would guess, a small rodent, basically.
I think actually, the agouti has come up at some point in the past, because I'm pretty sure we mentioned the ecology of the Brazil nut tree, right? The whole
oh yes, we've talked about it. Yes,
with the we've got the agouti is the little rodent that can like chip into the pods around the Brazil nuts. It's one of the species in that little mesh of the ecology that's all required for the Brazil nut tree to reproduce.
But what he said in the book was also that the agouti here was a bit bigger and was modified. Actually, it started not only eating the plants or the nuts, but also insects, small insects. So
yeah.
Oankali must have modified them so to be able to survive.
I mean, there was some evolutionary drift. I suppose probably would have been it's a bit of a short period of time for that, but
2 centuries. Who knows? Like
it's a couple centuries, and it's quite extreme selection pressure, relatively speaking, to the normal time.
Potentially,
so maybe you get something a bit more divergent. Yeah.
Who knows? But the thing is, we know that the Oankali did modify some animals, so it might be also the fact that they actually did modify even those animals. But did we have a discussion before about like what about the bacteria and like microscopic organisms? Do you think the Oankali have done anything with those?
I don't think we've brought that up, no. But I would be unsurprised if they'd been messing around with those as well.
Because I mean, we have ants of the size of the finger, right? You would also almost think that either they evolved to be this size or the Oankali made them this way. So why not?
I mean, we have ants almost that big anyway, right? I'm pretty sure there are.
But the size of a finger? I don't know. Like, I would be horrified. Like, I would be running as fast as I bloody can if I take me the other.
I'm pretty sure there are ants that are at least the size of like the first 2 joints on my index finger that are,
Jesus,
that exist in the world now.
Wow.
But like, I mean, one that's like the full length of my finger, probably less so, but like, I'm pretty sure they're out there.
I mean, except for the queens, right? Except for the queen, I can, because I know those can get big.
Yeah, but I mean, there's also some big like soldier morphs.
God,
that have the huge heads and the big clampy jaws.
Yeah, but like that's what I'm saying. Like if I wonder if they maybe also modify some bacteria, because like I mean, a lot of ecosystems work on like, not that I'm an expert in this, but like I assume that a lot of bacteria are necessary for one, digestion of food in animals. We obviously our bacteria flora and in our digestive system is important, but like also breaking down that tissue, right? So some types of fungi as well. So
actually thinking about the large ants, like one of the things that used to facilitate much larger insects was the much higher oxygen concentration that was present at one point, and a lot of that was because a huge amount of carbon was trapped in was lignin and some of the other compounds that are made by trees. But before the advent of a fungal enzyme that could break that down, a lot of it accumulated in like dead plant matter. And once fungi evolved lignin, then the atmospheric oxygen dropped back down again as a portion of the total. Like CO2 went back up a little bit, and then the huge insects could no longer survive because the tension gradient's not there.
I need to say, I'm really thankful for the fungi that they evolved to have this, because I would not want to have a fucking 1 meter tall mosquito flying around.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the joke, like El Mosquito, ito means small in Spanish, so there has to be a boss called El Mosco, basically out there. So.
Yeah. It's like the like meter wide dragonflies would have been pretty freaking terrifying.
My god, yeah. It's just like, especially if they're carnivores, right? They eat other insects and even small tadpoles, right? So
yeah. I mean, it would be like having a living like military drone style thing that would just like fly around and eat stuff the size of a domestic cat or something.
It's like the 70s or 60s, 70s, 80s, like B-class horror movies just come to reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Honestly.
And dragonflies, they're just like ridiculously maneuverable. If you've ever seen slow motion shots of them flying, there's an amazing one of there's a merlin trying to catch a dragonfly over some open water, and there's this like super slow-mo shot of this bird coming in, and if you see it in full speed, the bird like darts in and darts out again at insane speeds, and there's this so you've got this like real slow-mo, the kind of the like claws are opening, it's kind of reaching towards the dragonfly, and then the dragonfly just moves out of the way. It looks like in the slow-mo footage it's going at kind of a normal pace. It just like moves sideways out of the way of the claws, and they just keep going in this like super slow-mo kind of closing.
Basically real life
the
Matrix.
The maneuverability is insane.
Neo from Matrix, basically.
It's like one of those bullet time shots.
Oh my god.
But yeah, no, they're ridiculous.
But back to the topic, I guess.
Exactly.
So where were we? Yes. So Akin sends the Agouti, but he didn't want the man to kill it. Even though we were told that like the men during the journey were like craving meat. So he's like, okay, well, I'm not gonna tell them that. But finally he could detect the smell of books, smell of paper, and dye, especially the dye. So he followed the smell of the dye, and eventually they reached the house, and the men found firstly a book with some crop yields written down and farming methods. They were trying to, check what's the best method. But then at the end of the book, the men read both in Spanish and German that the village gave up. The village was visited again by the Oankali, and the people living there voted to join the trade villages to have Oankali mates and kids. Part of what we are will continue. Part of what we will go to the stars someday. This seems better than sitting here, rotting alive or dying and leaving nothing. How can it be a sin for the people to continue? That's a philosophical question, and I feel like the answer is you can't really answer until you get to the point where you are at that situation, right? You know what I mean? Like if we were at that position with like, you can't have kids, we don't have the technology to like do the sequencing, understanding what did the Oankali do to us, that we cannot have children.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I basically already said I'm kind of all in on this project anyway. Right? So like, they woken me up and shown me the spaceship and been like, "Oh, all this stuff." I'd be like, "Can I stay and learn about more how this works?" And
but but let's look at it from the other perspective. Like, let's imagine ourselves in a position that we really want to solve this problem, right? Like, this is let's say like the Oankali arrived at the point where like we were not happy, and like we are not happy, and they forced us on this, right? It wasn't like in this book there was like it's complete like non-consensual sex, right? Like we are not happy with this. So but we have no technology. Yep. So what would we really need to do to actually understand it? So first of all, we need to redevelop like all the different gold standard methods of like imaging, so microscopes, chemicals or chemistry would have to material chemistry we mentioned earlier and many times. That would have to be progress as well quite substantially, because before even we can do the sequencing of the level that the Oankali are doing, it's like basic DNA analysis, like, PCR techniques. Like, of course, you can do in the old style, like hot bath and different temperatures, but even that, we need the reagents, we need the like.
Yeah. I mean, I think in many ways the only winning strategy is almost independently preserving some human genetic material and then going in on the Oankali plan with the long-term aim of having descendants that would be capable of remaking the human species. So I think the idea would be to keep a piece of the culture alive and secret as a conspiracy to bring back the humans, because I can't see a way in which you can bootstrap the technology in a single generation. So it would be, I don't know, travel to the far north or south pole, right, and store a cache of human genetic material somewhere where it will naturally remain sufficiently cold to have it preserved, and then attempt to construct a secret culture that will persist inside the Oankali world until we have sufficient understanding and control over some aspects of their technology that we could bring back the original humans.
I guess like the sequencing of the human genome and genes, like before the modification, would be necessary. So all the like epigenome, the genome, the chromosome structure, all of that data would have to be stored somewhere.
Well, so that's why I'm saying we preserve some sperm and egg samples.
Yeah, but I'm talking also about electronic data, right? So be able to actually sort of use that as a basis in case the living tissue is not available, so that there is some sort of kickstart.
Oh yeah, I mean, it seems like the Oankali maintain those records in their own technological sense, right? They kind of record them biologically. So that would be one of the top priorities of this conspiratorial group would be the learning about and the limitations, the capabilities, and how you might attain the capacity to use the Oankali genetic engineering technology.
But yeah, I feel like it would, if we want to do it in one generation, so in those 30 years that we are back on the planet, we really would need to have a good kickstart from somewhere. Like it have to be some like data or some equipment that's being like somehow scavenged from somewhere, and somebody with the knowledge being what it is being able to reutilize this. Like, let's say they find some like equipment that maybe is still usable, microscopes and PCR machines, and maybe some reagents that being frozen or something.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I get this distinct impression that the Oankali will have already kind
removed all of that,
looted any of the interesting caches of pre-war tech and so on. But yeah, I don't see, in the absence of having access to advanced transportation technology, a way of effectively scouring the world for the remnants of those things. I
think without the correct infrastructure for like materials and stuff like that, I don't think it'll be possible to... Unless
you had specific prior knowledge of the existence of one of these caches in a location that was likely to have been missed by the Oankali, right? So if I don't know, let's say one of these guys who has one of those crazy projects to buy like a decommissioned nuclear missile silo in Nebraska and turn it into like survivalists' apartments, right? And has, a copy of Wikipedia and a bunch of other crap buried down there with them, right? If you know like the specific location of that, maybe you can wrangle a way to get there and find out whether or not there's some remnants of the stuff you might need down there. But then it's a question of doing that in a way that escapes the Oankali's attention. It's tricky.
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt to me like, I feel like if there was a collection of people who had the scientific knowledge, I feel like maybe they could reach some basic level of like, even maybe looking at the macroscopic level of cells, like, microscopes looking at the cells, extract, I don't know, even like just trying to see any physiological changes, but
so even then it becomes a like, let's say you have a group that successfully manages to reproduce some purely human children. You still have the problem of evading the Oankali, and they have orbital spacecraft, right? So anything that you do, they can probably find just from looking at the planet from up there.
No. What I'm saying is, like, but yes, we're looking at the most like, realistically that would happen, but like, thinking the fact that like some of the villages could potentially have let's say super conspiratory areas, like they can hide stuff, and like there's people like hiding this what I'm saying is like, it's realistically, if you look on the spaceship and the Oankali, that discloses. But what I'm trying to do is look in perspective of just pure scientific development of from zero to back to where we can do sequencing by ourselves, right? So how, like, for example, how many decades would it take for humans actually, if there was a already, let's say, setup of group of people who know what they're doing and what they need to do to acquire those materials back from starting point to the final stage.
Okay, so sort of granting we managed to evade Oankali detection, yes. How would we? Okay, right.
Because if you think about like trying to find a way around Oankali, it's probably not unrealistic. But let's say like it's possible. So from that state, what do we? How long do we think? What would be the next stages that people would need to do?
I'm not sure, really. To be honest. I mean, there's kind of so much like basic tech.
I was thinking about it. The more I thought about it, is like, what about like if human DNA was changed, like the structure of DNA? Like, you would literally need to start from the very basic one, having humans, then having humans that deconstruct DNA, and then having like, I don't know, a cadaver of an Oankali, and trying to see if what's the difference between the Oankali, because I feel like it's not gonna be the simple like, oh, they just blocked some genes and whatever, and they can like, I feel like it's probably even more complicated than that, and then something that even with our modern technology wouldn't be able to solve very quickly.
Yeah, whatever they actually did to make people sterile. Yeah. Yeah, we don't know what that mechanism is.
So we can't really even we can't even break it down without knowing what the mechanism is. So
yeah, you'd have to get back to a fairly fully featured set of modern molecular biology and probably even to a significant degree bioinformatic tools to do the analysis on that kind of stuff. So it's that's a long bootstrapping process, because that means you have
to have enough samples. You have to do
probably need some computing stuff.
Yeah, you have to do the computing, which probably computers don't work because there's no electricity. And if you develop the electricity,
yeah, you'd have to have the means of producing electricity, but the more difficult thing then is fabbing silicon.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, if you find some old equipment from pre-war, it's probably not going to work, because the gamma radiation from the nuclear weapons would probably fry everything. So the electromagnetic impulse would just basically destroy everything. So that's another...
I mean, you get some older generation
yeah,
chips,
but nowadays to find those, it's not really that easy, Richard. Like, everything nowadays is modern. Like 90-something% of equipment would probably break that we have. Like, like, I know that, for example, armies store old technology because they are aware of this danger, but realistically, I don't think you would be able to find something of this level at that point.
But I mean, even a relatively recent but old chip on a larger scale, like larger feature size in the silicon, is going to be more resistant to radiation damage than one of the modern ones, I think.
I don't think we can test it though, so it'd be nice, interesting if somebody could actually check which one's like, oh, the generation of...
I mean, they do that with things like the Mars equipment, right? They go for older, larger feature size silicon because it's less easy to have cosmic radiation flip a bit in your chips when you have a larger feature size. And that it's not even that old. It's still, I don't know, on the something like 30 to 50 nanometer feature size range, which is about an order of magnitude more than the cutting edge stuff they're developing now still. But it's enough that you don't accidentally get bit flipped from cosmic radiation.
Yeah.
And even then, right? I don't know if it's not going to do serious damage to the operation of the chip. I mean, it's not like there's ongoing radiation. So if it was off and not doing anything and it got irradiated, it's probably going to still work okay for doing computations subsequently.
I just feel like there's so many steps that we would have to undertake that it's just, I can easily imagine why it like overwhelmed so many people.
Oh yeah. I mean, it would be a ridiculously massive undertaking to you have to reassemble all these different components of civilization to make all of the stuff that we need to do the modern technological things. That it's a huge project. Yeah. But hence my my kind of immediately abandoning that plan, going for the preserve some genetic material independently of the Oankali if possible. Yeah. Retain that secret down some generations, and then maybe try and have a pro-human faction within the Oankali that can eventually get control of some of its own Oankali-based assets and use them against the Oankali. And you need like an inside underground kind of a movement, because I can't see the trying to run it independently approach working. It's going to be discovered at some point. It's going to be stamped out at some point.
You have to work it from the inside, basically. Yeah, I guess. Well, let's go back then to the chapter, because it's really depressing if you think about like trying to solve this.
Yeah.
So the men left the house after finding that the village joined the Oankali, and went looking around looking for things they could scavenge. Akin found one of the Agouti and was observing its behavior. I guess the man was looking around. The Agouti, initially wary, eventually allowed Akin even to touch him. But the moment the animal moved away from Akin, it got blasted away with a roar of a human-made thunder. Akin turned around and saw Galt holding his gun. The man looked at Akin and smiled. Akin understood then that the man had shot the inoffensive animal not because he was hungry for its meat, but because he wanted to hurt and frighten Akin. What an asshole. Akin went to the Agouti and saw it struggling to run, but its struggles were in vain, and as its hind feet did not work, and it had a gaping hole in its side. Akin bent to its neck, tasted it, and then deliberately injected his poison. After a few seconds, the Agouti stopped struggling and died. I mean, seriously, what the hell is wrong with that man? Yeah,
that's messed up and unnecessary.
Galt approached and nudged the animal, but Akin said that he helped it die. This is an excerpt from a book. Akin swayed slightly, even though he was sitting on the ground. He had tasted the Agouti's life and its pain, but all he could give it was death. If he had not gone near it, Galt might have never noticed it. It might have lived. He hugged himself, trembling, feeling sick. Galt is just like, really?
It's just unnecessary.
That's like basically a psychopath behavior. Like, generally, just like the moment anybody would do that. Hello, police. Yes, please arrest this man because he's not capable of living in society.
Well, yeah, it's just one of those things, right? He views Akin as not being of his group, so he might be nice to other people, but he's, Akin's the other. So,
like, I get that, but it's a child. Like, what has a newborn child, a 1-year-old child, had to do with anything just about being born? Like, this blows my mind. This argument that they're different, and because they're, like, just blows my mind. How, I don't know, like, lack of empathy in humans in general.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the whole thing, right? It's the dehumanization process, right? That's how that kind of sentiment works, right? If you dehumanize him and they've been, dangling him by his limbs, somewhat dehumanize this other person, and then they're in the out group. They're no longer part of the moral universe about whom you have to care.
I know, but I mean, we treat animals better than we treat some humans. Like, it just blows my mind. Although sometimes understandably. Anyway,
but yeah, it's interesting also that Akin has this. Akin very acutely feels this, right? I mean, Galt is right that this is going to actually hurt him, which is interesting because Akin has this quite Oankali sense of kind of a value for life, right?
Yes.
They really dislike killing stuff, and he also has the empathy and the.
But I need to say something.
Kind of understanding to decide to kill it.
Well, I need to say something that
And put it out of its
if
misery.
I was Galt, I would pee my pants. Like, can you imagine? You're trying to be vicious towards a kid, like, because he's in your eyes a monster. You shoot an animal to try to scare it, and usually people behave. And there's like this kid just standing there, standing up and turning around and look at you. I would literally poop my pants. Like, if somebody like this, just a kid, 1-year-old kid, just looks straight into my eyes, straight after, and not even twitch.
Yeah. So Akin has just, very kind of calmly killed this agouti, put it out of its misery, put it down, right? And now presumably with blood on his mouth, because he's just been, in there injecting his poison on this wounded animal, is turn around giving you the evil eye for having done that, right? So yeah, definitely like all the like creepy kid horror.
Yes. Oof.
Yep. Yeah, which, so from his perspective, may not have been a good move for his rep with Galt, right? Because now he's going to be scared of something, which is probably a problem.
Yeah. Which later on is actually the exact same thing Iriarte says to Akin the same thing. So, but let's go back to this. So, like, I mean, honestly, like, at this point, like, I feel like God's like, what the hell? And then he asks him, why does Akin only talks to him? To which Akin tells him, first of all, he wanted to help Tilden. Now, because he wants to help him, and he shouldn't eat the agouti because there's poison in it that would kill him. And I mean, at this point, I would understand why the man would freak out, because, like, I mean, he does, because the moment Akin said it, like, Galt aimed like a vicious kick, as the book described, at his head, but Akin dodged it like Neo. I don't know if this is all like over a colorization of the situation what happened, but like, imagine like a kid just like calmly looks at the animal, feels it does something to it, turns around, has a blood in his mouth, and then you ask him, why does he talk to you? And he's like, because I don't want you to die. I would honestly be like, yep, this is a demon child, kick it, kill it with fire.
No. Well, I mean, that's the whole dehumanization thing, right? Now he's sufficiently alien that it freaked you out to provoke that kind of reaction.
So Iriarte then comes to the scene, running and picking up Akin and holding him protectively against Galt. You fool! You'll kill him, Iriarte shouted. Good riddance, Galt yelled back. Shit, there's plenty of trade goods here. We don't need any mongrel bastard. Kalik had come up and stand beside Iriarte. What have you found here that we could trade for a woman? He demanded. Silence. That's what they got, silence to trade. And then Kalik says, the boy is worth, is worth to them what gold used to. In fact, Iriarte added, he was more valuable than Galt. So, like, at this point, like, you see a demon child, and then all the other men who are not aware of what just, took place just come in and protect it. It's like it's just a perfect horror movie. Like, you see, like a setup. Like, I can imagine this little child is like, doing like these voices to you, and its head's turned 360 degrees, and then like you're like, oh, this kid is a demon, and it's like, no, it's just a child. What are you talking about? It's like, yep.
Yeah, the whole I suppose like Akin is kind of like ends up not intentionally, but sort of gaslighting him for the fact that he doesn't talk to any of the others, right?
Absolutely.
The others are all like, what are you talking about? This kid's just a kid. And he's like, no, he talks, and he's like killing things. It makes him look like he's nuts. But
exactly, it's exactly what happens in the book. What exactly as you said. But it's the best part is like Kalik tells back to God, it's like, it doesn't matter. But like, he doesn't care if Akin could fly, because there are people who would pay anything for him because he looks normal, right? So Iriarte then asked, what did the boy say? So God repeated everything what he told him. But then he then lifted Akin and asked him to speak. But of course, the boy was smart and kept shut. So like, as you said, gaslighting God completely.
Yeah.
And Galt was like, okay, give me the boy, I'll make him speak. But the man said like that he will speak when he's ready. He himself, Iriarte, had 7 kids before the war, and they never wanted to talk when he asked them to. So it doesn't matter if he can talk. The boy looks normal, doesn't have any Oankali physicality, and that's what makes him so valuable. So it makes complete sense that Galt is so pissed off, like, and then on edge around Akin. And the chapter ends with Iriarte taking Akin close to him, and when they were alone, he tells Akin that if it's better not to talk in general, just not to talk. Also that he should be careful not to scare the rest of them, the men, like trying to kill things with the poison, because they can get crazy. And that's where the chapter ends.
Yeah. It's interesting that, this guy is warning him that the others can get crazy. They all seem to have
they're all crazy. Like,
again, with this group, they all think each other are kind of a little bit,
unhinged, on edge.
Yeah, something like that.
Unhinged, on edge. Yeah,
they're all kind of concerned about one another's behavior.
Yeah,
which is very a dangerous, unstable lot to be stuck with. Plus, their end goal of trading him for a woman.
Why woman? Like, I don't get it. Like, I mean, maybe like the physical needs, but like, I don't want to really go to this conversation, but I just don't feel like that they, like, what would that solve? Like, I mean, maybe they're just, I don't know. Let's not go there, because I just feel like this will get really uncomfortable very quickly. So,
it's immediately back to sexual.
Yeah, basically,
slavery.
So,
great.
Let's go to my predictions then for chapter 7.
Yes.
So I wasn't certain where this will go, because they find one village and they were like, okay, there's nobody here. So then I thought they might go on a journey, and then they find all the villages so far they've seen empty. Like, I thought that might be the case. The Oankali are like, just like Nikanj mentioned to Lilith and Tino, that they're gonna send people over, like they try to re-invite people back to the Oankali, right? So I thought maybe that the fact that what will happen is that they will go to another village and then they'll find the same thing, like that there's nobody there. Or whatever they are asking for, another woman, they'll be like, nope, that's not gonna happen. So they're not unsuccessful. And eventually they were like, okay, fuck it, we'll go to Phoenix, right? So that's why I thought that that might take place.
Okay, so you've been scared off your Phoenix next prediction for having it falsified too many times.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know I don't think they're gonna reach Phoenix yet.
Okay. Actually, we kind of didn't talk about the when they abandoned this village. There was that split, right? Because some of them decided to join the Oankali, and another group said,
"Yeah, this is
like splintered off and left and said, we're not doing that."
Well, we only know that there was like one person wrote it like that, because in the book it was like written in German, like, oh, we know the Oankali are abominations, blah blah. So the men, I think, assumed that they splintered off. So maybe some
I suppose.
So I assume like that there's only like few individuals. There's no one. Probably they just went off out of the village, and either went out of the village and just to die off, or joined the Oankali but never to pair with anyone, right?
Yeah, I don't remember if they didn't really kind of spell it out. We just kind of had to figure out from the signs. But it sounds like they held a vote, and the majority joined the Oankali, and presumably a certain number of the minority who dissented decided to.
There's no point of doing anything.
To go their own way and leave. Yeah.
So
I suppose we could potentially encounter
some of those people.
Some of those people who splintered.
I have this strange feeling that because Phoenix is mentioned so many times, that Phoenix is going to grow to this, like, either Phoenix or later on some sort of like the southern groups, like that's being mentioned earlier about with the guns, right? There's gonna be like this super agglomeration of people who are like from villages and areas where the Oankali visited to reinvite them, and they're all collected there. That, like, the final sort of stand of humanist standpoint, like where the final resistance, let's call it, right?
Okay.
But I don't know, like, whether it would be the Phoenix or it would be one of the southern towns, villages, whatever you call it, that would be like that. But I cannot imagine living in such places because it'll be so miserable. Like, can you imagine? Like, it's already miserable that you cannot have children, and then, I mean, considering the fact that the book they were trying to impregnate young girls, that's already fucked up. But like
yeah. Plus, apparently, they're willing to trade
women and
women.
But also, the fact that like you live in a village for like, let's say 20, 30 years. Your lifespan is probably like 150 years now, like life expectancy. And then suddenly Oankali revisit you and you're like, and they're like, oh, and there's a vote and most people are like, you know what, we're tired of this. Let's just live with Oankali. And you're like, deep inside, you're like, the fuck are you talking about? And they all go to that like one city, right? Like they all agglomerate. How much of like, not hatred, but like I wouldn't be able to live around people who are like have so much hatred inside, bitterness. That's maybe what I was looking for. Bitterness in them. Like the whole town would be just like, I don't know, like just full of bitterness in them.
Yeah. I mean, this is very much kind of an illusion of choice, right? There's no. This is sort of, you know, wearing people down slowly to give in to joining up with the Oankali's plan rather than anything resembling a sort of meaningful choice to be separate from them, because it's just there's no prospect for the future of anything that they try to build. It's just
I just feel like it'd be such a miserable existence, like that place, like just collection of non-stop love, like this that build up of tension so high that like you look at someone and they immediately just jump at you with fists and, you know, kicks and stuff like that. Just imagine very easily such environment.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know. I'd be more inclined to be on the kind of like in a homestead somewhere away from a larger center of population if I was doing that, rather than being in a town. I mean, you know, if I'm planning to kind of like live out my days and not join the Oankali, then I want to do it away from where a whole bunch of other humans are likely to kill me.
It's more likely that you die from the humans than you die from the Oankali. So it's like, well, yeah. So I guess that summarizes my prediction. I'm too scared of Phoenix at the moment, so I don't know when the hell are we gonna reach that place, but. Whatever is gonna happen, like it's not gonna be nice, probably. Okay, yep. So cheerful chapter. Yeah, honestly, like all you know, smiles all around. Everybody's happy. Everybody is singing "Kumbaya." No, apparently, Octavia used to struggle with that quite a lot. She wanted to write a book that had kind of an up tone, but was always like. Oh, well, this has a very down tone. Oh my god. Sort of trying to write something cheerful, but always ended up with something like super depressing, and kind of had to, you know, rework it to make it slightly more, palatable. So I think we're reading the edited version, right? Oh my god, right? the one that she tried to cheer up. I just cannot imagine what topics she would go into, like if she didn't, like if it wasn't rewritten. Like it's already talking about pretty heavy topics, and like, but it just sort of skims around it because I feel like in the original version she probably went in much more detail in some things that really would. Yeah, I think there's from what I've kind of heard of her writing process, apparently she went to some pretty dark places. Okay, well let's not go there because I mean already it's She didn't go there, so we don't have to. Anyway. Yep. And on that note, I guess let's finish off. Yes. So, thank you very much for listening. We're Xenothesis. You can find all the places we upload our podcast on xenothesis.com. I was Michael Glinka. I was Richard Acton. Bye. Goodbye.